Hey everybody, welcome to Leading Thriving Cities. My name is Chad Wright. I'm the founder of Forward Partners. This is our show where we shine a spotlight on leadership in public service, and we have deep conversations about sustainability and how we build a thriving future for our cities. Today's guest is James Hartshorn. He's the Deputy City Manager of Pflugerville, Texas. And if you know anything about Pflugerville, it's here in the Austin area, it is exploding. They have so many massive projects going on, and James is right at the center of so many of those. There's these cultural things they are starting to do to really build a tremendous culture in Pflugerville. They're winning awards for this. And so this is a conversation you're going to find so much insight in that you can directly apply to your city. Thank you for joining us on Leading Thriving Cities. All right, James, thank you very much for being on Leading Thriving Cities. You and I have kind of known each other for a few years through your work with Pflugerville and some of the work we've done there. You have been in city management for a while now, and we were kind of talking about your history. And part of the reason we're doing this is telling stories. We want people to understand the work you do and how vital it is to society. And so what's one thing you wish people understood about city management and the role y'all play?
I think first and foremost that we exist.
We're here,
right? City management is a thing. I think a common misconception that I run into with friends and family is like most people, they probably have this understanding that mayors run the city, or maybe city planners. Sometimes they use city planner interchangeably with city manager, which I can understand that misconception. But just understanding what that role is, that they are the CEO of the city, that they're in charge of operations, and you have a mayor and council that is guiding the ship and telling us where to go, and it's up to the city manager and their team to get us there, and actually run the day-to-day operations. I'd also say just the complexity of city operations. Typically, the questions I get from friends when I haven't seen them in a while is like, "What's the new businesses coming to town?" That's kind of what they think about, what they care about, right? But they don't necessarily see all the other things behind the scenes of water, wastewater, stormwater, HR, IT, like all the different business niches that we have dealing with legislative issues. I mean, it's a very complex organization to run. It's maybe just a little bit of it.
It's the complexity, I think, is what's fascinating, because you think about a lot of companies, and a lot of companies themselves, like, here's the thing we do. You guys are doing everything from infrastructure with wastewater and roads all the way to economic development. We're pitching the city to businesses and bringing them in and finding new industry that would fit really well with us. And those things are so wildly different, it's not even funny. And yet this one organization has to be an expert in all these different areas. I find that part fascinating.
So a joke I kind of say sometimes is I actually had one week where I was negotiating a contract and had a rabies bite case. So it's like, it is literally everything. It is that broad in the sorts of issues. So I learned a lot about rabies that week.
Yes.
More than I thought I would ever learn. And that's what keeps me in the game, right? It's always something new, always a different topic to learn about. But it's an inch deep and a mile wide. Just so complex and so many things, so many fun things, interesting challenges to solve.
Let me ask you this, because I think mindset is everything. So when those random crazy things pop up, depending on the day, are you looking at it going, God, really? I got to deal with rabies right now? Or are you like, oh, I get to learn about rabies today?
I mean, we all have our good days and our bad days. But I would like to think most of the days it's like, cool, like another opportunity to learn. Because I've been in jobs where I'm making the same widget day after day, and that gets old real fast, right? And so that's part of what appealed to me in this profession is just the wide variety of things to do and to learn about. And oftentimes it's not me necessarily these days digging deep into something. It's kind of guiding the discussion and the research behind it. But every once in a while, something will pique my interest, and I will do that deep dive just for my own gratification. But it does keep it interesting.
Yeah. And am I remembering correctly, you came in through the kind of communication side of things? You said you had worked previously for the comptroller's office on the communication side.
Yeah. So I did work for the comptroller for a little less than a year right out of school, right out of grad school. But my first real gig was more in economic development, and that was for the city of Texas City.
Yeah.
Heavy Main Street revitalization, heavy it's a petrochemical hub. I mean, it has the
Yep.
biggest gasoline manufacturer in the country, and so everything from a smaller deal to help a mom and pop store all the way to $4 or $5 billion petrochemical LNG plant. So it was the broad spectrum. So it really gave me a really broad experience in economic development. And then for a time managed communications and started to manage municipal court before transitioning over to Pflugerville. So
did you start at Pflugerville as an ACM?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that probably that interesting divide there on the economic side where it's, hey, we got mom and pop, we got these massive organizations that kind of gave you a preview of city management life. We're dealing with rabies one day and we're negotiating a multi-million-dollar contract 10 minutes later.
That's right.
And so that was probably kind of here's what you're in for. Do you love this?
Yeah, and I had a great mentor there, Nick Finan, past president of TCMA. Mayor Matt Doyle was there. Had been there for 15 years as the mayor, and his dad before him. So there was this legacy of strong leadership, and kind of being new to the profession, they were good about allowing me be in the room and kind of hear the negotiations, which was really fascinating, eye-opening, and beneficial to my own kind of critical thinking.
Is that something that's followed you where you're cognizant now of letting people into the rooms you're in to say, hey, I want this person to come experience this and see what this is like?
It's something that I'm really passionate about.
Yeah.
And it's, it kind of started it started before Texas City. I did my internship. So I switched gears. I went back to school because I was actually I thought I was destined for law enforcement.
Okay.
My great grandpa was LAPD, grandpa was LAPD, uncle was Secret Service, brothers retired law enforcement. So that was my path. But graduated and with my bachelor's degree, and they were letting people off, much less hiring police officers.
Yeah.
So I went back to school and found out about the city management profession and made that switch. But when I did that internship mid-years with a gentleman named Ed Broussard, he's now the city manager in Tyler, Texas, been there for many years, but he was in Missouri City before that. He was one where I was looking for an internship, and I just looked for Aggies in the Houston area. I'm serious. And I called him.
That was the filter.
I called
that was
him
the criteria.
and said, hey, I'm at the Bush School at A&M looking for an internship. He said, come see me. And by the end of it, he just created this paid internship out of nothing for me. And it was an amazing experience. But what was most impactful to me was he had his regular meetings with his two ACMs, so just the three of them. But he let the lowly intern in to sit at the table, not in the back corner, but at the table and to listen to the discussions and to be able to see and hear from those three executives as to how they're making decisions, what factors are they weighing, and then ultimately coming to recommendations it was life-changing. It really was. And so that's something that I try to pay forward, not only allowing, but encouraging and expecting people that have expressed an interest rather in the profession, or that just want to be supervisors, leaders one day, to have them at the table and to learn. Right? How do we expect people to develop their leadership skills without seeing how it's done?
Yeah.
And the decisions that are being weighed behind the scenes. So absolutely.
Well, in y'all's culture, when I think about the city manager's office specifically, and I don't know if this is intentional or we're just making the best of a very small space, but y'all city's manager's office, every time I've ever had a meeting there, it was in the middle of the room with all these offices open and everybody's just kind of there, right? Everybody participates and has that conversation. And so it's an interesting picture of what that can look like, where everything's just kind of open. We understand each other's business and we're helping each other out in that process.
Yeah, I mean, our old dentist office really comes in handy for that. So thanks, Chad.
Did it used to be a dentist office?
It wasn't purpose built for what we use it for today, but it's come in handy.
It really has.
Serena now jokes that not only does she have an open door policy, she has a no door policy because the conference room / her office is all
one giant thing. Yeah. It is very interesting.
Yeah.
My guess is on focus days it's less appealing, but on other days it's great.
We make it work.
I love that.
Moving into a new city hall in the next year. So
that's exciting. That's going to be really cool.
Yeah.
You'll have to hold on to the dentist office and use it for meetings occasionally. Just here's where we came from.
Stay grounded. Yeah.
So on this journey, obviously, I think there's a lot of different ways into city management, and I think as you go along that journey, there's a lot of growth that happens. The version of you that sits here today and that leads as deputy city manager is not the version that started in public service years ago. And so, what are some of those bigger things you've kind of had to overcome for yourself as you've developed as a leader?
So I think it's probably common amongst most people that find themselves in leadership is that at some point you make the transition, and you wonder if you were ready. And for me, I didn't feel ready, for leadership. Something I'll share is again with Ed. During that internship, I asked him what's the one thing I need to do to be ready to be a city manager.
Yeah.
I'm thinking finance, planning, economic development. It was none of those things. He said you need to develop your management and leadership style. And I was like, I don't lead anybody. I'm a student right now. How am I supposed to do that? And he said, you just need to start consuming good things, good books, good articles, good podcasts, get some good mentors. And so that really changed the trajectory of my life. At that time, I had a 40-minute commute to grad school. I plowed through leadership books. I asked for recommendations from people I admired and really started to dig deep into learning the skill of leadership. And so for me, it was kind of getting over that imposter syndrome is kind of the buzzword that's used these days, but it's trying to gain my confidence and feeling like, with humility that I can do this work. And people will follow if I'm doing the right things and building trust and, but it's up to me to develop that.
That when you have that imposter syndrome or that lack of confidence, is it based on the expectation we put on ourselves that I've got to show up and I've got to be perfect at this? Has that been a thing that you've wrestled with through your career?
I think it's more for me that I don't want to let the people in my care down, right? I feel a deep responsibility of the people in my care. There's a book that I read recently is written by Jim Mattis, former Secretary of Defense. I didn't mess that one up. But he talks about, in so many words, he talks about this concept of like, to the extent that you are not developing your leadership and gaining from the experience of other people, you are having to learn from your own experience, often at the expense of your people. And in his business and military, it can be costing people's lives. So even at his level, he was constantly consuming good stuff, learning from other generals, learning from historical strategy on the battlefield, because he felt that sense of he had to be as prepared as he could be. So for me, it's I owe that to my people to be as prepared as I can. Another quote I love is that luck favors the prepared. It's kind of a version of what General Patton said, that in so many words he said, "There's no such thing as luck, only opportunity meeting preparedness." And so you might come out of a tough conversation with somebody and say, "Man, I'm lucky that went that good. I'm lucky it went that way and they took it well." Well, there was the opportunity, and if you were prepared going into that situation, it's going to have a different outcome, right? Instead of just winging it. So I try to have that mindset of I owe it to my people to be the best leader I can be, and I'm not going to use them as my guinea pigs to get better if I can help it. And
it's funny because I think sometimes we unintentionally do, but what your mentor is talking about is so profound, because I think we keep talking about this idea of sacred leadership and this idea that yes, you have the tasks you need to get done and you need to make sure your team gets their tasks done, but how you show up as a leader determines how they go home, and how they go home then has an effect on their family life. I think the quality of our parenting and the quality of our relationships is affected by what's happening at work. The seasons I point to and go, I don't think I was a great dad, I was really struggling at work. And that had a lot to do with that struggle at home. And I think when we promote, we just think, well, I get the bigger title, I get the bigger paycheck. We don't understand that is a sacred responsibility we have taken on. It's our people's futures that we are creating. And if we're figuring it out as we go, like I think you're probably like me, I can wing a lot of situations pretty well and I can do that successfully. I don't think leadership is one of those things. I think we have to be so prepared and careful before we walk into that room. Tell me about the mentor side, because that's one of the things you said, is surrounding yourself with people. And this is a side that I often see people struggle with, that they have been their whole careers and never really intentionally created a mentorship relationship, never had anybody that really sat and said, hey, come into this room. I want you to see how this happens. And so what has been your relationship with mentors? Is it an ongoing thing where you're always seeking new mentors and establishing those relationships and growing through that? Or how does that work for you?
Yeah. So I'd say in the beginning, it was kind of this shotgun approach, if you will, of kind of like, I'm just going to get out there and try to mingle and do as much as I can. And what I've learned is over time that I need to be more dialed in. Like I need, so now I really try to reach out to people that I admire for specific reasons. Like I want that. Yes. Whatever that person just brought into the room, I want some of that. And so people that I admire, try to be more targeted in relationships that I tried to build. Now still being involved in the broader organization. Yeah. But for me, what I tell people that are trying to get into the business is the TCMA region meetings are where it's at. Yeah. If you have an active region, because you get to meet people that are in your area, it's more informal, maybe less intimidating than a conference. And generally, the people that are showing up to those meetings are the type of people that want to help bring up the next generation of city managers and are more than willing to be mentors. And so, yeah, I mean, for me, it kind of looked like an email is just saying, hey, like I heard what you said at this region meeting, really inspiring. Would you be willing to let me buy you a cup of coffee sometime, take you out to lunch? Yeah. And from there, like, so I might reach out to 3 and maybe 1 will get back to me. And so I cling to that 1 and try to build that relationship. But yeah, mentorships are non-negotiable in this business for me because you can't know it all. And the people 10, 12, 13 years ago when I started, we've all kind of grown up in the ranks together. And so even that kind of more peer level mentorship is really important. Yeah. Because they're experiencing different things in other cities than I am. Yeah. And they may have experience with rabies that I didn't have, for example. And so I can reach out to those people, right? So
you're calling your friends and saying, hey, have you ever had rabies?
Yeah. How'd that go for you? I'm glad you're doing well. So yeah, I mean, it's like, when's the best time to plant a tree? It's the same time it is to start a mentorship relationship, right? It was 10 years ago. It was like when you first met that person. So plant the seeds now. Yeah. Right. But these days it is more targeted. Like I'm already thinking of people that are in cities. I was thinking about it this morning at the gym of how am I going to be better prepared if and when that opportunity comes to be a city manager? Well, I want to look at cities. I want to look at city managers that have been through a fast growth city and come out the other side. Well, I want to start reaching out to those people. I'm going to. Yeah. Right. So yeah, it never stops.
That's the question we always give people to answer is who has created what you want to create? Right. They've created the career. I think often even on the personal side, they've created the family. The joke I always tell, which is not really a joke, is the only reason I didn't kill my teenagers at some point is because I had men in their 60s and 70s go, hey, it's going to be okay. They're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Don't kill your kids. Okay. We got this. And that was really helpful for me. And so I think it's who has built what you want. And these were all men who had built families that their kids were in their 30s and 40s and were thriving and doing well. And so I think it's finding who has built that career that you want to have. And I'm amazed how often we talk about this idea in some of the leadership development we do. And I'm amazed how often the mentorship gets the most resistance. We talk about how you need peers, you need fellow leaders as one part of your circle, you need mentors, and you need professional help. And the mentors gets a big pushback of, how do I get a mentor? And so I think it's not a natural thing, which is why I love this conversation, because it can help people see the value in that. Because I agree, I'm kind of the same way. It has transformed my life. We would not even be sitting here in these chairs without mentors that have helped me. And I've always gotten a yes. Like I'm amazed the people I reach out to now that they're building what I want to build, which is a massive thing. And they're like, I would love to help you. And I'm like, me? Really? And yet I think people that have achieved anything, we know we didn't do it on our own. And so we want to bring up those people. Yeah. And it's easy to get a yes, I think, in a lot of cases like that.
Well, and I'm a recovering introvert too, right? Like I don't necessarily enjoy
you and me
walking
both.
Up to people and striking up a car. It just doesn't. Yeah. I think I've improved in that area, and maybe I don't get as anxious these days doing that. Yeah. But on TCMA or even ICMA's website, they list people who have said, I am willing to be a mentor. They put their names on there, and they will link up with you. So there's people that are sitting there waiting for mentees to reach out to them. So if going up to somebody, at a conference isn't your thing, go online and send an email.
That's good advice.
And because there's people literally waiting for
Yes.
people that are interested to learn.
And I will say, if you are the introverted type, because I think of one of the mentors that I'm still working with, and I had my extroverted friends introduce us, because I sent it out to a lot of people, said, here's what I'm looking for. And 2 people were like, oh, you need to know Andrew. And they're all extroverts. And they're like, come to this conference, we'll introduce you. And sure enough, they did. And it worked out great. I probably would not have just randomly walked up to Andrew and been like, hey, like I'm some teenager trying to ask somebody a question, and it went really well. So introverts, find those extrovert friends. They'll exhaust you, but they're not too bad.
Yeah, small doses, not so bad.
I like that. So you're obviously really passionate about this next generation, and I think there's a potential upcoming crisis for public service where we're going to struggle to fill a lot of these positions because public service is getting harder and harder. I think sometimes the incivility that's created in society makes it really hard to be in public service sometimes. And so I think coming up, there's going to be some of these jobs that are really tough to fill because people are going to go, why would I go do that when I can go over here, do a similar job and make better money? And so what do you say to the people that the young people looking at public service for the first time and asking the question, is this where they want to spend their lives? What would you say to them?
There's a lot to unpack there, Chad. So a quote comes to mind, Pastor Lindsay, I think, who said, if you live by the compliment, you'll die by the criticism.
Mm.
So if you are one that needs affirmation all the time and the pats on the back of how great you're doing, this probably isn't going to work well for you.
Yeah.
But if you are somebody who has a deep passion for service and your happiness comes from within, which I think is getting increasingly difficult in this day and age, where people are looking for those likes on their pages, so you have to find that. If you don't have, if happiness isn't built into you and your why for public service isn't crystal clear, it's going to be a difficult row. Right. But if you love service, if service is core to who you are, and like the rest of us in the business have found that you are happiest when you're in the service of others, this is going to be a great fit for you, and it's going to be very fulfilling. I think was it Steve Jobs that said he wanted to put a ding in the universe. Hopefully I can put a ding in Texas, maybe Central Texas, maybe Pflugerville. On some level, I could put a ding in something, and we're building some legacy projects. But for me, it's actually not that stuff for me as much as it is the people that I get to work with and coach and be coached by. So what are you looking for? If you're looking for a paycheck, if that's your motivation, this probably isn't the gig, although you can make a great living as a city manager. I'm not going to say you won't, but you have to figure out what your motivation is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I think I told this story the other day. I was talking to somebody on an airplane, and he said there was a woman in his life who was asking about, should she take this new job? And the question he asked was, I don't know, who are you? And she's like, I don't have an answer to that. And yet the answer to that question determines where we should go. It determines what we should do and why we do the things we do. And so I'm curious about your heart for service, because you mentioned earlier your long family history in law enforcement. And is that where that heart for service came from? Did you just see that modeled for you over the decades?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So if you look at both sides of my family, so grandfather on one side was LAPD, and grandfather on the other side was a professor of religion at BYU. See, this is interesting.
That's fascinating.
So they took service in different directions.
Yeah.
So that made for interesting family gatherings. But service and my faith of knowing who I am and my purpose on this earth, service is central to that. I believe it's just a part of my identity that I'm here to serve other people, and I'm also here to learn how to become a leader of myself, at least, but even better if I can learn how to lead others and help them find their path. So that's just kind of central to my upbringing and my faith and the type of professions that were modeled for me. So yeah, absolutely.
As you're raising 5 kids, you mentioned earlier you have 5 children, which that's a lot. We stopped at 3; that was too many for us. So 5 though, that's a lot. You have the ability there to say, okay, I want 5 human beings that are going to go out into the world with a heart for service.
Yeah.
Is this something y'all talk about on a regular basis, and that you kind of model for your children what that looks like?
Absolutely. Again, our faith-based discussions are every day in our household, as much as we can. But yeah, and they see me. they see what I do, they ask what I do.
Yeah.
They're getting to the age, the older ones are kind of getting more aware of what it means to be a city manager and kind of seeing me and I try to bring them along when we're doing, creek cleanup projects or whatever. I try to expose them to that and help them feel and kind of catch the bug for serving and kind of leaving things in a better place. So yeah, absolutely.
That's really funny. I was thinking about my kids because they kind of have that same heart for service for people, and they're not all necessarily in public service or anything like that, but they do serve through their jobs. And one person was asking me one time, "What did you guys do to kind of implement that?" And I was like, I think a lot of it, like when they were 7 years old, 8 years old, we had them serving right alongside adults in the church environment. So they're opening doors for people and greeting, and they had to learn how to have adult conversations. They had to learn how to interact in an adult way while serving others. And I think it made a huge difference for them. And I don't know if that was intentional on our part so much as it was, yeah, you go over there and do that thing for a while. I don't have to deal with you. But it worked.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting exposing kids early on to that idea of you are not here for you, you are here for others. And I think that's a big part of what's missing in a lot of society now is we think it is about us, not our service to others.
That's right.
So as you've kind of gone on this journey, you mentioned earlier y'all are doing a lot of big projects in Pflugerville, and you are. We had Thomas Hunter, one of your ACMs, on a couple of episodes ago, and he talked about there's these projects that if you get one in your career, it's kind of a miracle, and y'all have got like 4 or 5 of them happening right now in Pflugerville.
Yeah.
So your focus as those projects are going on is leading the people and them having the support they need to actually go make that happen. So you talked about being part of a fast growth city. That is very much Pflugerville. What have you learned through that process being in a really fast growth city? How do we do all of this without burning a bunch of people out in the name of progress? Have y'all figured that out, or is that a work in progress that y'all are always trying to tackle?
I think we do pretty good at that. For me, what that looks like is regular conversations with my direct reports from people I work with. And it's this open conversation to say, if you're ever feeling overwhelmed, talk to me. Let's talk about what's on your plate. And you might have 50 things on your plate. Let's just make sure that the most important things just keep bubbling up to the top, and we just keep knocking out the most important things. There will always be more work. There's always going to be more work to do. But as long as we make sure the most important stuff keeps going to the top of the list, we'll be just fine.
Yeah.
Also remember how much you've done this year, in the past 2 years, the past 3 years. Like, look how far we've come and what you've done. Don't forget that, right? It can be really discouraging when there's so much to do to say, like, man, it's just throwing one, starfish back in the ocean sort of thing. You know that story. But it's like, it made a difference. Don't forget that made a difference over there.
Yeah.
So it's just part of that motivation to say there will always be more work. Make sure we're working on the most important things for us right now. And don't forget to celebrate along the way.
Are you able to model that for yourself very well? Like, do you do that well to stop and celebrate and stop and think about perspective? Because what I know about you is you're an incredibly driven human being. And what is true of a lot of driven human beings is if we're not intentional, we tend to say, hey, yeah, go do this good thing for yourself, but then we rarely do it for ourselves. So I'm curious, how good are you at doing that for yourself?
Well, I'm so grateful for the tools that you've given us too in our city. I think what's unique about your approach is showing us how our behaviors change when we're less healthy, and that's really been beneficial to me, to kind of show when I'm sliding down the scale and when I need to do some self-help.
Yes.
So I have my own check engine lights, as I like to refer to them too. So
I'm stealing that. That's a good way to think about it.
Use it. Copyright 2025.
Hey, write that down, guys. We're taking that.
So I know what my check engine lights are now.
Yes.
And when those things pop up, that's my time to say I need to take a break. I need to express gratitude. I need to stop thinking about myself as much. And that's usually when I'm most happy is when I'm thinking the least about myself, and I'm more focused on the people around me and making sure they're happy. That's when I'm happiest. And so when the check engine light goes off, it's like, all right, let's diagnose this. What's going on? Let's sit with it. Let's get my wife's perspective. Let's get a mentor's perspective. Let's get different perspectives on this. And then if it's not super clear, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But That's another reason mentorships are beneficial, right? Is that you have sometimes it's people in the business, and I have a great mentor in the area where I brought up this fact of just, man, I'm just overwhelmed right now. I'm so stressed out. And his very wise counsel was, why does it feel stressful? And in my words, when do you take off the mantle? And so that's been really impactful to me. So the way I put that in my mind is, why does the mantle feel heavy? The mantle of leadership feel heavy? And when do you take it off? And so those are things that when my check engine lights go off, I say, why do I feel stressful? And am I creating this? Am I building this up to be something that it really isn't? And most of the time, the answer is yes. So
those moments of self-reflection are, we refer to it as a pause, right? And so it's funny you're the way you're talking about this. I've had some check engine lights this week, and I have been willing to pause. And one of the things you said was gratitude, and I literally spotted a check engine light. I was like, oh, this meeting's about to go real badly, because I'm about to walk in here and I'm not in a place to do this. And I immediately went to, hey, what am I grateful for today? And I just started listing things. And it was amazing how that one little exercise, that it took me 30 seconds, right? But just listing, here's things I'm genuinely grateful for. I was immediately like, I was able to breathe out, and all that tension just kind of melted, because I was like, you know what? Things really are pretty good. I'm wound up about me right now. You're right. It is a very inward focus. How does this affect me? That is a check engine light for me if it is all about me, because you're right. It is, when we're doing well, it's all about others, isn't it?
that's right. Yeah.
That's really interesting. Is that something, I'm guessing over the years you've kind of developed that ability to put language to that and to actually use it, because my guess is younger James probably wasn't as good at this. And I'm only guessing that because no human's good at that when we're young.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a process that everyone goes through. Have a 12-year-old going on 13, and she's now coming into her emotions and trying to put names to things and trying to recognize those things. That's true of everybody. And again, consuming good material, good books, good podcasts, good articles helps you kind of put names to things and recognize things in yourself. But absolutely, that time for self-reflection is essential.
I'm kind of amazed too at how you talk about consuming good books, good articles, podcasts, how that can flip things. Because again, I've had some check engine lights this week, and I started a day not feeling great, and I did some things to kind of get myself moving in the right direction, but I was driving to a client, I still wasn't feeling great. And I put on a book I've been listening to, which is about building organizations and building great organizations. And something about that just got my mind focused on, okay, yeah, we have a chance to go do this and to make these changes and to impact people. And it just changes everything, right? It switches suddenly there's this drive that didn't exist before.
Yeah.
This is weird timing. This has been a weird check engine light for me, week for me. So this is good timing for us to have this conversation.
Yeah, but you might say how lucky I was to turn it on at that one time. Well, you were doing the work, right? You press play.
That's fair.
So it's again, the opportunity met preparedness there. You're doing the right things of trying to consume good things. And I can't tell you how many times where I'm listening and I get it in 10-minute bites when I'm driving to work and back.
Yep.
And like, oh, I could totally use this today in this conversation I'm about to have. You know, how fortunate. But I'm trying to put myself in the right place to have those moments.
You're right. That intentionality makes a difference, because I also think of one of the I guess mirror reflections of the opposite side of that. If one side of the coin is I'm surrounding myself with good content, good people, good things that are going to do nothing but good for me. The other side is, boy, I can waste some time on Instagram Reels. I can really just start scrolling through dumb videos of people doing stupid stuff and just look up and go, oh, wow, I've wasted 2 hours of my weekend just gone, right? And I kind of have this theory I'm working on that they talk about the idea that the 5 people you surround yourself with, you're going to be the sum of those, right? So if your growth is what you're surrounding yourself with, that's what you'll have.
Yep.
I think we've probably replaced 1 or 2 people in that circle with social media. And I think that's why we're struggling so much, because the influence coming into us, what we take in is not good, which means the output is then not good. And I think that's a hard thing for us to let go of, because there's a lot of dopamine hits that come with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the other side of that is extending a little grace to yourselves, right? Maybe after a grueling day, 30 minutes of Candy Crush isn't the worst thing in the world. Let your brain relax a little bit if you're intentional about it, if you're setting boundaries on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly it's you are what you consume in large part.
It's amazing the difference it makes too, because we were talking. I have a pretty intentional plan for most of my weekends. Rest really well, come back ready to rock and roll Monday. I haven't had a full weekend in a long time just because of a bunch of travel and a bunch of work stuff. And this weekend I was in no way intentional. I think I played video games the entire weekend, and that is not helpful. That is not it. Boy, I got here Monday and I was in the worst mood. I was like, I'm not ready to deal with this.
Yep.
Hey, let me ask you this. So you obviously consume a lot of podcasts, a lot of books, a lot of things like that. What's the last book you read or podcast that you listened to that it just really kind of lit you up? You're like, oh man, more people need to read this, especially in city management.
So right now I'm reading with a team. So we do a leadership book club. Right now we're in Crucial Conversations.
Yeah.
The latest edition, 3rd edition, I think.
Yeah.
It should be required reading.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. Because again, it puts there's nothing in there you read like, oh my gosh, it's just a revelation. It frames things in such a way and puts names of such a thing to such a way that it's like, yeah, that makes sense. And it puts a structure to it. And it helps you kind of self-diagnose, why did that conversation go bad? Oh, it's because there wasn't safety in that conversation or whatever it is. So yeah, I would highly recommend Crucial Conversations. It's been really beneficial.
I like that.
Yeah.
If you had to go back to the version of you that was kind of considering, okay, law enforcement doesn't look like it's going to work. Maybe I'm going to get into public service and see what that's like. What advice would you give yourself?
Yeah. There's a few things. One, talk to people in the profession, as many as you can, as varied as the type of backgrounds as you can. So if you want to get into city management, just show up at a TCMA region meeting. And talk to people, or reach out to people, whatever. So talk to people that are actually in the business, right? How better to learn what it's like than to hear from somebody that's actually in the business. I would say know your why, as we talked about a little bit earlier. Why do you want to be in public service? If it's not that you want to make the world a better place and you want to really make an impact in your community, you really enjoy serving other people, then you'll have to take that into consideration. And I would also say, for me, it was a discussion with my wife, right? She, thankfully, before we got married, it was understood I was going to be a police officer. The schedule was going to suck.
So she was ready for a sucky schedule and probably not great pay.
So set the expectations low. Yes. Chad is what I'm saying. But she had buy-in, right?
Yeah.
She understood, I'm going to have the kids while they're little. You're going to be working graveyard shift for the first 5 to 7 years. It's going to be a bit of a grind, but you're passionate about it, and I support you doing that. So if you have a significant other, making sure that they're on board with that, because we talk about work-life sway in our organization. Serena's big about that, where there are weeks and months that are going to demand a lot of you, like COVID, which it was 80-hour weeks, right? And then there's other times where I don't have as much work. The temptation for me is to feel guilty that I'm not busy enough. But that's the time where I can lean in my family more and spend more time with my family. So there's times where your family demands more of your time, and you might sway over to where your work demands more of your time. But recognizing that, and having buy-in from your family on that, and the support is going to be crucial to your success as well.
Yeah.
That's probably my three things that come to mind.
And those crucial conversations come in handy when hey guys, we're in a season where I'm going to be at work a lot, or hey work, I've got some family things going on. I need to go take care of those things. Those ability to have the vulnerability to say, here's what's going on is really vital. But I think that's a piece we miss a lot.
And I'm not in the big chair yet, right? I'm not city manager. I recognize that's very different, and I honor and respect the people that are in that chair. You could imagine what it's like to be the spouse of a city manager when the heat is on in the press or whatever. And so it takes a special person to be that support system for you. And it's even been true in my position when certain things come out. Or, they're, she gets comments about traffic or whatever it is, and it's like, well, let me explain.
Yes.
So having that person on your team's
because sometimes the
good.
city manager is the target, but often it's just the city.
Yeah.
And it's easy for then, I think, for our families to kind of internalize that. And if somebody's mad at the city, well, now they're not mad at the city, they're mad at James. And I think that is kind of tough sometimes. For spouses that are in this and families in this, what advice would you give to them? I've never really thought about that, but they're really, man, they're not in the trenches all the time, which means they don't get to have a direct impact on these things. They don't fully understand these things. They just know they love you and somebody's mad right now. What advice do you give to them in those situations, or just in general?
That's a great question. I don't know if I've thought about it from that perspective. But my wife is my confidant, right? She's I get to bounce all of my ideas and stuff off of her too. Like, hey, I'm having this kind of situation. What do you think about that? Mm-hmm. And so I really tried to leverage her different perspective on that and get her advice on that. That's important. So I kind of have this struggle between, not to get too personal, but it's like, you also don't want to relive your work when you get home, right? So there's an element of like, I really don't want to rehash this again, but you have to bring them in on a lot of the stuff. And I found that to be beneficial to say, hey, here's what went down. Mm-hmm. Here's why I'm feeling a certain way. And she's just been so gracious and empathetic, and I couldn't do it without her. So,
yeah. Have y'all developed a rhythm for that? Because I know, being an introvert, I spend all day in front of people. This is what we do, right? We're always in front of people. And I get home and I have nothing left in the tank. I have no words. I have no patience. I have no willingness to hear. And so what I've learned is a good 30, 45 minutes in my reading chair with a book and sometimes a little bit of whiskey, I'm good to go at that point. I'm like, okay, now I can engage as a human being again and not as this just, exhausted thing. And so have y'all developed a rhythm that does work for you? Because you've got 5 kids that are, they're on a spectrum of ages. And so it's easy for us because our kids have moved out. Do you have a rhythm like that, or does something like that exist for you?
Rhythm is a relative term in our household, right?
I can imagine.
Every week is different. They all have their own schedules with activities.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that's consistent is council meetings every other Tuesday.
Yeah.
And so we generally know that Tuesdays and Tuesday nights are kind of like, I'm going to be toast when I get home. So
yeah.
But generally kids are already in bed when I get home.
Yep.
She knows to, she's there and willing to listen if I want to talk, but she understands if I maybe don't want to talk.
Yeah.
But recent things have been great. We have such a great council, and our council meetings run smooth. And we get a lot done. So it hasn't been but there are times, there are occasions where you have a rough day, and she's very gracious to say, I can just say, it's a pretty tough day. I'm just going to go for a walk by myself.
Yes.
And I'll be back in a little bit.
And I think there's even something to acknowledge. It doesn't take chaos or stress or massive things to create a draining day. You can have a great day that is still draining. I literally spent Monday with your team in Pflugerville, and I got home and it was so draining. It was an incredible day. We had the best conversations. I loved connecting with them. Yeah. But then I got home and Rebecca's like, how's your day? And I'm like, it was good. I got to go sit down. Yeah. And it was just it was both good, but also draining. And I think that's the kind of distinction we might have to make sometimes.
Yeah, and just being engaged and listening and attentive for a 3-4 hour stretch.
Yeah.
Even if it's all good stuff is really, you're right.
That's a lot.
It can be draining. Yeah.
I love that. Well, one of the reasons we're doing this is we really want to have more conversations about thriving. And y'all are doing interesting things, because I constantly see on LinkedIn, obviously we're connected, but I follow everything Pflugerville does. And y'all are always doing things to invest in your employees. And, Robbie and her team with PNC are doing incredible work. And y'all are being really innovative, I think, on the employee engagement side of things. What are y'all seeing there in terms of the benefit of all the effort you're putting into that? Because I think it's fair to say you do more than probably the average city does. And there's got to be a benefit, an ROI to that. What are y'all seeing in that?
So I would say, to start off with, that it starts with trust, the trust that Serena has built with our council. And the fact that we do our jobs and we do it well, we take care of business, allows us to also play hard. when we're not working hard, and they support that. We do invest a lot of time and effort in bringing people together. We have the fun committee, PFU, when there are no F words for those listening in Pflugerville. It's always PF. Have a shirt to prove it.
I know.
And so
drives me a little crazy.
We
I'll
have
be
the fun
honest with
committee.
you.
I'm going to send you a shirt now. So we have
double X.
We have the fun committee, and these are our high energy people that love doing the thing, right?
Yeah.
And so we have at least every other month, if not monthly, some sort of thing. We just had a kickball tournament.
Yeah.
There's some sore feelings over, some sore losers there, but by and large, everybody had
I can't imagine
time.
that with your team.
No one got hurt.
Right.
Everybody had fun, but it brought together people that wouldn't typically have reason to rub rub shoulders. So we invest a lot of time in just creating the space for people to get together across the organization and build those relationships. We had people visit from outside. We have a monthly leadership meeting, and that's anybody who is in a supervisory role. About 70 of us. We get together once a month. We have a rough agenda. Again, that's getting those people together. Excuse me. But we had some visitors come, and they left afterwards, and they told the city manager, like, this is amazing. Like, you guys all enjoy being together in the same room. We really do. Like, we've been really great at hiring great people, retaining great people, and the people who don't perform, they get uncomfortable and leave, or they're asked to leave. So we talk about weeding the garden, because the worst thing you can do for your culture is to allow bad behavior. And so that's a process, right? Yeah. Been here 6 years. Serena got there 10 months before me. It took all of 2 or 3 years to really get the garden back in shape, so to speak. And we have people that are all, we've defined our core values. We talk about our values. We celebrate our values. We hire and fire based on our values. And so building that culture has really paid off in spades. And that's reflective in our retention rates, which are a fraction of our peers. People just don't leave. Once they get here and they realize how fun it is to work in Pflugerville, they generally don't leave. And so we really actually genuinely enjoy working together. We're texting each other over the weekend sometimes, sending pictures of our kids at batting practice, baseball or whatever. So it's like, it makes it a really fun place to work.
I'm always looking for teams when we work with them, like, how fast are they to laugh together?
Yeah.
And that is, I can always tell when I work with a team, like, if they still laugh at my stupid jokes, clearly they're comfortable together. But it's the ones that I'll make a joke and it's just everybody stares at you. I'm like, okay, this team's this. I don't assume it's my joke. That's the problem. I assume the team has challenges. Yeah. And I'm usually right about that. Usually there's some tension there. There's reasons they're not laughing. And so I love watching y'all's team interact because I see a lot of that. And all that is an effort towards your people thriving. And I think there's a lot of things that we have to rethink as cities to become a lot more people-centric and to ensure that they can thrive in the future. What are some of those things you recognize from your chair that, hey, we probably need to rethink this in the future so that we can make sure that we look up and we don't hit that hiring crisis. We make sure we are able to hire because people want to be a part of our cities. What do we need to rethink to make that a reality?
So I think what comes to mind first is just how we work, how and where we work.
Yeah.
I think we are somewhat unusual in Pflugerville in that we support remote work for certain positions. Now, obviously, police, public works, a lot of, probably 2/3 of us don't have that option just because of the nature of their work. Yeah. But for those that it is possible, we support that, and we don't babysit people on it, right? We have a policy in place. Basically, it's a privilege, not a right. And supervisors have discretion over how they structure people's time, how they flex their schedules. You have your kids thing in the afternoon, cool, just come in a little bit early on this day or whatever. So we're very flexible in our schedules, and we allow for remote work when it's effective. So I think that comes to mind. I've got a lot of buddies that are in the tech industry, and we've seen how they're bringing everybody back to work. And so that's probably the first thing that comes to mind.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. How have y'all navigated? Because the reality is there are some jobs that are simply not remote.
Yeah.
How have you navigated the fact that you've got some that can do that and some that can't? And have the people that can't do that, do they get upset about that? Do they get irritated that somebody else gets to live this life where they don't have to come into the office every single day?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So I started in June of 2019, and we all know what happened 9 months later.
Yeah.
So it's like, welcome, and you've got this thing now. And I had IT, so it's like, cool, you got to get 80 people working from home right now.
Yeah.
Parks, to open or to close, that is the question.
Yeah.
HR, all these new policies and laws and mandates coming down from on high. And so, like, navigating all that stuff. And so, yeah, it was tricky. Like, and no matter what you did, you were going to upset some people. It's like, well, what the heck? I still have to come in and work, and they get to work from home. I think that kind of worked its way out over time. And one thing that we're big on in our city is when you come, we actually do this onboarding. We have a very robust onboarding program, and part of that is it kicks off with a member of the city management team, an ACM, myself, for the city manager. And part of what we preach is, we're so glad you're here. I hope you serve in this position for at least a couple years, but know that we welcome you to work anywhere in the organization. So if you come here in streets and you find your passion in police, we will help make that happen.
Yeah.
And so likewise, if you're working somewhere where you can't work remote, but you have a passion and the skills or the desire to go there, we'll help you get there.
Yeah.
We don't care where you work. We just want to keep good people. We need good people all over. So I think that's part of it too.
I like that. That's interesting. I think that's where a lot of places are saying we got to be one or the other, because they don't want to have the hard conversation of, some jobs get it, some don't.
Yeah.
And I think if you go to the people that can't do it and say, look, what if we can do something for you later that we can't do for others? Would you want us to still do it? And I think it's being okay with the fact that someone might get something you don't. And that's okay, because we're all in the same boat. We're all pushing in the same direction, but it may look different for each one of us. And y'all's flexibility there of, okay, you want to work remotely? Here's the roles that can do that. How do we help you get there? That's really fascinating.
And I think just policy in general, I think there's this general tendency to say, we're not going to do this thing until it is dialed in and we've figured out all the different variations of things that could go wrong.
Yeah.
We don't operate like that. We're changing and growing so fast. We just have to, in somebody else's words, we have to launch and iterate, right? You just get it off the ground and then we'll figure it out from there. Like if that doesn't work, we'll just pivot and go this way a little bit.
Yeah.
So we try not to get hung up on all the what ifs. It's like, let's just get it going.
And what's interesting is y'all been doing that for a while, and not only is nothing broken, like the city's still there. It's doing great.
Yeah. And that's part of like when we talked about earlier, like, why does it feel so stressful? There's very few things that we could do that would land me in jail or somebody else in jail. Like, by and large, you're not going to break it. You're not going to break the city.
Yeah.
But yeah, it goes back to something my grandpa used to tell me, is that it's a lot easier to steer when you're moving. This is pre-power steering, understand, right? It's a lot easier to steer when you're moving, right?
Yes.
You can't turn a ship that isn't moving.
Yeah.
Right? So we have this philosophy of like, let's just move. And if we need to do these little course corrections along the way, it's fine.
I'm curious how much of that, and I don't know that you'll have an answer for this, but how much of that is driven by y'all's city management team? Because just knowing the personality types in your city management team, y'all are the types that say, let's just go and we'll figure it out.
Are you saying Serena moves fast?
I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know. I think y'all move really fast as well.
She does move fast.
Yeah, she moves fast and y'all move fast. And I think that's what's really interesting, because like I'm the type, I really want to sit in, let's figure this out and let's do it right the first time. And so I'm wildly different. I'm less of a move and we'll figure it out kind of person. And so I think it's just fascinating that the personalities of the highest levels of leadership within the city have kind of shaped that organization. And what you learn is, I say that. I think younger I was, let's just plan and it's got to be perfect. Now I think I'm more of we're not going to burn it down. Let's just give it a shot and see what happens. Yeah. But I've learned that. And I think y'all are probably teaching a lot of people that are not the same personality type, hey, it's okay. Let's take calculated risks. Let's jump off. Let's see what happens. We're not going to burn the whole place down. It'll be fine. Yeah. And that's a valuable lesson, I think, for all of us to learn.
Yeah. Calculated risk is a good way to put it.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's
really
good.
You can't know everything about everything. You can't plan for every iteration. At some point, you just got to move.
Love it. James, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for doing this, my friend.
My pleasure.
Thank you for joining us for Leading Thriving Cities. If you'd like to find out more about what we do at Forward Partners, you can find us at www.forwardpartners.net. We love partnering with cities to learn how to develop healthy leaders and thriving teams. We do that through a variety of means, from leadership coaching to online courses to facilitating retreats. If you ever need anything, please feel free to reach out. You can also find us online with all the different socials, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We are putting out content all the time, and you can find it at Forward Partner.